a good question. We actually have this old wooden box sitting in front of the wheel. It might not look like a whole lot to most of you. It's actually an old 50s era fuel carrying box. And my grandfather, being a child of the Depression, he never threw anything away, so he saved this box, and it's actually sat in all 3 Discovery Boat wheelhouses. It's what my dad and uncle stood on when they were kids, coming to work with my grandfather and learning to read the river and become the captains that they are today. And it's what I stood on with my siblings and all my cousins when we were just little kids. And it's really neat. I get to see the 5th generation of the family coming to work with us and standing on this box. So it's kind of a family heirloom.
Yeah, 3 generations worth and growing. And as far as generations, this not only applies to your family, but also the technology in this vessel. We've actually got innovative ideas that span well over a century. So for our engineering-oriented folks, tell us a little bit more about how she's put together.
Sure. Well, this boat is actually a really good blend of old and new. Those old boat builders really perfected the design of these stern wheelers. So the basic design of this boat remains relatively unchanged from the boats of the old. For example, we have a perfectly flat bottom on the boat. There's no keel, which is what you'd maybe find in a sailboat. And that allows us to carry these heavy passenger loads down these really shallow rivers because we're only drawing 3.5 feet with all of our passengers, which is a really impressive draft for a vessel of this size. Some more modern amenities, though, come into play up here in the wheelhouse and down in the engine room below decks. I can remotely control the boat from all the way up here with these gadgets here in front of me, and I don't need anyone in the engine room to help me. You know, back in the old days, they used to burn cordwood to create steam power, and the vessel of this size would burn about 1 cord of wood per hour. So you can imagine how often we would have to stop along the riverbanks and wood up, as they would say. Very laborious, very backbreaking work, but in the modern day, we're lucky enough to be burning diesel to create hydraulic power, so it's something that we're very thankful for, obviously.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier to call up a truck and have them run out of hose.
Yeah.
Thank you, Maddie, for the tour up there. Appreciate that. And you can see she's got a very good view from 41 feet off the surface. Or I thought you would. There we go. Right, of course, where you want your captain to be, so they can see everything that's coming. But if you were to come back and see us in the wintertime, things would look very different out here. And we'll show you on the monitors what it looks like, say in February or so, at a time of year when our dog munchers get very excited. Like the great Susan Butcher, who you see in here, hitching up a team, getting ready to go for a training run. Right out from Trailbreaker Kennels. And she'd still be doing that every single year. I guarantee you, if cancer had not come in and stolen her away from us in 2006, we lost her. But not before she changed the face of Iditarod mushing for good and raised some of the greatest dogs ever to compete, including a little runt born to their kennel one year that all her friends looked at and said, just give that one away as a pet. He's never going to be a good sled dog. He's too little. Well, guess who's leading her to victory in the 1987 Iditarod right here? She named that little runt Granite, the dark colored dog you'll see to her left. And he won in 86, 87, and 88, 3 in a row. That had never been done. Got a heart infection after that almost killed him. The vets were going to put him down. And Susan refused. She nursed him back to health, and he won again in 1990. Every time she won, he was in the lead. All that from a little puppy nobody believed in, and they beat their competition by 18 hours and set a record. Pretty amazing. And you look over to the left, I will keep my promise and introduce you to the folks at Trailbreaker Kennels here. We're going to stay for a while, by the way, use this boat like a big grandstand, and it's my pleasure to introduce you in particular to the co-founder of this facility, Susan Butcher's husband, a veteran of the Iditarod and the winner of the 1988 Yukon Quest. Dave Monson, nice to see you.
Well, nice to see you, and welcome to Trailbreaker Kennel. And as you can see, we're having a glorious day on the banks of the Chena River. Honestly, Fairbanks is probably the best place in the state to spend the summer. But, you know, it wouldn't matter if it was summer or winter, hot or cold, raining or sunny. If you get to play with puppies, every day is a great day.
Yeah, that's always a nice way to start things out. And maybe, Josiah, you could show us those puppies while we find out a little more. They're not out there yet, or where are they? Oh, they got them running around. Okay.
Where are they?
They're over there by the dock.
Okay, that's what I thought. I couldn't see them.
That's tricky Laura throwing curveballs at it. So how early in their lives do you have to develop this relationship for it to last as their entire lifespan, basically?
Well, you know, what we want to do is we want to establish a lifelong relationship with these guys the day they're born. So so what we do is we pick them up and hold them in our hands, and even though their eyes aren't open for the first 10 days of their life, their sense of smell is highly developed, and they can associate that feeling of comfort and security being held with us. So by the time they can run around a little bit like these guys are doing, they already know us, trust us, and want to follow us on adventures, which is a perfect opportunity for us to help them develop their self-confidence, which we do by asking them to overcome obstacles. Now, the first thing we did when they were little bitty puppies is we asked them to jump across the log here. Well, they couldn't do it at first, and so then we helped them across. Look at that guy's going to try and get up on the dock now. They couldn't do it, so then we helped them across. But the time came when they made it with ease, and then they get lots of praise on the other side, and they learn something from that. And what they're learning is that we're not asking them to do anything impossible, and also that we'll always be there to help them if the going gets tough, and that pays big dividends when we're on the trail together with them later on in life.
Yeah, well, you know, it's fun to watch them grow. When you first brought them out, their eyes weren't open, like you said. You could have carried them in teacups almost, and now they're exploring and running around and trying the water out like these over to our right. What will happen though once they kind of begin to outgrow the challenges in the yard, but it's still too small to hitch up?
Well, you know, what we want, I think, is like every parent wants for their kids, they want each success to be a stepping stone towards the next success. And so, of course, after they bonded with us, they've developed self-confidence, they feel comfortable in this area, then it's time for us to introduce them to the older dogs. And honestly, the older dogs and the retired ones are the most important ones in the kennel because they get to teach the little guys by their example. So, for instance, let's say we go for a walk out in the woods. Well, when we go for a walk out in the woods with the puppies, we always take older dogs with us because those dogs will run way out in front and the puppies will chase after them. And when they've been out there for a while, goofing off, running around trees, ravines, water, whatever, then we call the older dogs back, immediately brought back to us, and the puppies chase them back. So as we do that again and again, the puppies start learning two valuable skills. Now, the first skill they learn is to listen for my voice, because when they hear my voice with the older dogs, something always happens. The dogs always run to me. And it's really important that they be listening, because with dog teams, all commands are verbal. The teams are simply much too long to signal any other way, so they have to be listening. But the second thing is really by far the most important, and that is they have to always trust and follow those older dogs, because those are the ones that ultimately bring us all safely home, and they need that skill when they go in harness for the first time. Yeah, well, and that's when you really get to see what they're made of. This little black and brown one with Laura looks like he's got some speed on him. When will you know that the time has finally arrived to hitch them up? They need to be a certain age, or what is it? Well, you know, we know it's time for them to go in harness, not when just one thing happens. It's when a whole series of things come together that will assure that first run is successful, that they'll enjoy it, and that they want to do it again. So, of course, they have to be physically ready, as you can imagine. They have to be big enough, strong enough, and fast enough. And these guys aren't there yet. It usually happens about 6 months of age, but we know it when we see it. And so we know they're ready physically, and then we want to know, hey, how are their skills developed? In other words, are they listening for my voice? And most importantly, are they following the examples of the older dogs? But the final thing that we want to see that brings this whole thing together is instinct, is the instinct to pull kicked in. And what that is you're going to see it right now, and that is the love, joy, and desire each one of these dogs have to run and pull a sled down the trail. And but you can imagine, though, if I had a bunch of puppies and I hitched them up and I didn't have great leaders out in front, it'd be like first grade class without a teacher. It'd be total pandemonium. And so what we do is we put